Nader Hashemi is an associate professor of Middle East and Islamic politics at Georgetown University. He is now joining us live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Hashemi, good to see you and thank you very much for your time. Let me begin by asking you, the transitional government in Syria is talking about peace, is talking about unity, but the other parts of Syria are sort of divided because we have other communities who are saying that they want to be integrated into Israel. Will this unity call work?
Well, look, I think it's important to point out that Syria is just emerging from 54 years of one family rule that has been characterized by extreme brutality, the likes of which we have rarely seen on the planet, perhaps since Joseph Stalin. I'm talking about the level of repression and torture and trauma that the Assad regime has inflicted on the Syrian people. So that's important to keep in mind. We are at the beginning of a process where there is a political opening, and Syria has huge challenges going forward. The good news is that these new rebel leaders, in terms of what they've been saying publicly, calling for unity, calling for a new vision, calling for inclusivity, calling for tolerance, those are all really good statements. But as anyone who's studied politics should know, politicians should be judged not by what they say, but what they do. And what these new rebel leaders choose to do remains to be seen. It's only been 1 week since Assad fled to Moscow. So there's a lot of question marks about what happens next. I think this is something that we're all watching for. Of course, there's lots of concerns as well because this rebel movement, HTS, headed by Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, was formerly affiliated with Al-Qaeda. To their credit, they have claimed that they've broken ties, they've reformed themselves. But if anyone looks at how the HTS rebel movement governed the northern province of Idlib, it's not a pretty picture. And if that's going to be the model for the future of Syria, then there's going to be a lot of chaos moving forward. So we have to see how this all plays out. But I think we have to give Syrians time and space to figure it out.
Mr. Hashemi, let me stick to your last point there about rebel groups, because we've seen what happened in Afghanistan. The Taliban, after it took power in Afghanistan, it has never been recognized as a government. Do you think that's the same fate for the HTS in Syria going forward? Because countries like the United States and countries like UK still consider HTS a terrorist organization.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I think the HTS, if you listen closely to what they've been doing, not just since they toppled the Assad regime, but really for the last several years, they've been trying to send a message to the West that they are a different organization. They're not a terrorist group. They've changed, they've reformed, and they desperately want recognition. I think that explains, in part, this more moderate tone that we've been hearing. Syria is different than Afghanistan in the following sense. It's much more geostrategically located in a more sensitive part of the world that matters for the West because of its proximity to Israel, because of its proximity in the Eastern Mediterranean and its location beside American allies in the Middle East, primarily Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Jordan. So in that sense, I don't think the West is going to be able to simply isolate the HTS rebel movement like they have the Taliban for those reasons. I also think that, the HTS is not as extreme ideologically as the Taliban. So I think the parallels there also break down when one tries to make these comparisons.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Been talking to Mr. Nader Hashemi. Mr. Nader, thank you very much for your time and for talking to WION World is One today.
Thanks for the invite.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.